Yikes, man! You gotta be in the world. Job
Well,
interview.
welcome to Full Scope, a podcast with two guys in their 20s giving their perspective on the games that we love and the story behind it all. And we were talking about our futures, but we had to give it a little break as we start this episode. How's it going?
It's going pretty good, man. It's going really good. We missed last week because
Yeah.
of some work situations, but I'm glad we're doing it this week.
Yeah, and I mean every streak comes to an end. I mean, like we were usually pretty consistent doing this, but it's definitely good to get back at it. To start it off, the Rockets had a very resilient Game 4 win against Golden State, and there were pretty much two stretches where Golden State starts off 12-0, and then they have a 10-point lead in the third when Steph, is extremely efficient and kind of going on his vintage run that he's capable of having in the third quarter, and the Warriors have in the third quarter. And then they rally from that. Chris Paul has a really good game. James Harden, not as good, but pretty much they run a 7-man rotation. Gerald Green only had 12 minutes, and they're able to win by 3. And then there was kind of an erratic last possession by Golden State. But in terms of what happened and how they were able to rally and especially the big game, Game 5 that's coming up, what are your thoughts on their win?
I have to give them credit, but I also have to take it back a little bit. They played phenomenal defense in the back half of the third quarter and going into the fourth quarter. Like you said, they came back from a 12-0 run. We got embarrassed the game before by 31 points. You come back, you're not playing as well. Steph Curry is shooting bad, which is kind of a surprise. Sometimes you see him shooting bad, but they played great defense. But also, there was a lot of mistakes and a lot of missed opportunities. The Golden State Warriors missed out on. You miss out two open 3 shots by Steph Curry, who we think is a sniper on the 3-point line. Klay Thompson misses one too, and then Curry misses a wide open jumping layup, and then Draymond Green's pick it up and he's fouled by Paul, and he misses 1 out of 2 of the free throws. So it's a lot of mistakes, a lot of missed opportunities the Golden State Warriors left on the board. But I can't take away all of it because they played great defense and it got them to the point of coming back from those deficits. That's not easy. Playing against the best offensive team in the league right now. And for the past 3 years, to be honest. But they played great. James Harden still has shooting struggles, and he's looked like he's becoming drained. He doesn't have a left in his tank, and that's where you get Chris Paul and Clint Capella. And the bench played a phenomenal. Eric Gordon was 1 for 8.
Yeah,
I like his bench play. I like his tenacity and what he brings off the court.
If he can be a consistent third scorer, that was kind of the thing that I thought. Like, if he can be a consistent third scorer in this series, they're going to have a really strong chance to win it. Because for the Rockets to win, Harden and Paul have to have a great game. They both have to have a great game.
Yeah.
The Warriors, they don't really need all 4 of their guys to have a great game. And if you have a guy like Eric Gordon who's a spot-up shooter but can create his own shot, I really feel as though that'll be something that can give them an edge or really benefit them in this series. But with Golden State and the fact that we really haven't seen them kind of have a lot of bad shots consecutively in the fourth quarter when they have a double-digit lead. Usually that's a guaranteed win. But in this game, it seemed, and even in this series, there's been the notion of they're kind of going more into isolation with Kevin Durant, but you'll do that with the luxury that he brings. What are your thoughts on just kind of how the isolation zone is kind of going with them with Durant? And do you think it's more credit to the Rockets of them forcing them into the isolation?
I think it's a point of complacency because that's not their game. Isolation is never their game. They like to spread the ball open, get people on the 3-point line, run to the 3-point line, get people over, swing the ball. Ball movement is their game, and that's the scheme. When they do the isolation, I think is a point of complacency for the team. They get lackadaisy. It's like, okay, we're up, we're doing this. Let's get Kevin Durant or whoever the isolation is. Let's get them the ball and let's slow it down a little bit. That's not their game. Slowing down and playing loose and flow basketball is not what the Golden State Warriors is all about or
Right.
should be about, to be honest. They're a fast team. They spread out. They isolation is not their game. This is not the Westbrook show. This is not the Carmelo Anthony show.
That's what Durant left from.
Exactly. And I think he went to the right scheme because they like people who can be able to shoot off the run, off the set shooting, running through the to the 3-point lines. That's their game. Fast, everybody moving down. Transitional basketball is their game. Isolation is not. I look for them to continue to pass and have ball move the next game, and they'll hit better shots next game. I think it'll be a different story. I think Golden State will win next game.
Yeah, one of the things with Golden State is when they have a loss, they respond so well in the next game. Like it's almost as though you kind of wish that you could see just a consecutive, like they just kind
dominate,
put the stranglehold on a series. But sometimes when you're facing a great team like Houston, that can't happen because, like we saw in the opening game of the season when the Golden State had a 13-point lead, and the Rockets come back, and we were like, look, this is a good sign because this entire season has been predicated toward, like Daryl Morey said, an obsession of Golden State. Like we like that is all we think about. And when you have a team like that, having resiliency and being able to come back from two just knockout punches, just two heavy blows, I should say, and still being able to fortify that is really impressive. With PJ Tucker and how he can kind of be their center in that small ball lineup, do you think his defensive prowess is also going to be a key factor? Because look, even though he had 4 points, I think, or 6 points, he had 16 rebounds, and he was a huge factor in that category.
Second chance basketball is the Houston Rockets because James Harden's not always going to hit the deep three, and Chris Paul's not always going to hit the three. PJ Tucker's not always going to hit the three. And these guys, when they're on, they're on. But when they're off, it's kind of hard. You're going to need second chances, especially with a team that plays great transitional basketball who can run the court, backcourt, and the front court. So PJ Tucker is going to be a vital step. I'm looking for Ryan Anderson to play a role too because he can shoot the three ball and he can play. Do
you think he can give it? Do you think he can give an adequate contribution though? Because it's like game one, that was all they used him for, and it seemed as though even with the Golden State's center rotation, they're not even playing West Pachulia, JaVale McGee, because those guys aren't useful for this series. Do you think the Rockets are just kind of shortening their rotation because Anderson can't be really that much of a use in the series?
I think they're going to have to bring him in. They're going to have to give him more minutes and see what happens. Because like I just said, these guys are running out of gas in the third and fourth quarter.
Right.
If the Golden State Warriors are not hitting or missing a ball or missing opportunities or even isolating, they're slowing the game down. You need guys who are going to be able to hit the three for the guys who are gassed and tired at the end of the game. So I know Chris Paul and James Harden is going to get their 20, 30 points, but they run out of gas at a certain point. Some guys are going to have to step up. Eric Gordon was one for 8 from the 3-point line. You need a guy. I think Ryan Anderson, he's been a shoot 3-pointer guy since he was with the Orlando Magic when he first came onto the scene and became a household name. They're going to have to give him more minutes and see what happens. He can play defense. He's not a big guy, physical guy. He can't get with Draymond Green, but I think he has that Kevin Love aspect that he can spread the court and give isolation to Clint Capella if need be and dish it out and have some ball movement that way. But they need to give him some minutes. They need to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a good part of the scheme that they're going. I mean, don't give him big minutes, but give him at least 15, 20 minutes so he could be out there and force them to change their lineup.
Yeah, I would definitely think that they need another player. I'm not sure if it's Anderson just because it seemed as though he really hasn't given them that much this season, but they definitely do need another player if they're going to continue to shorten this rotation. With Iguodala, he's kind of the glue guy. He does all the little things well. He's one of their best perimeter defenders, if not their best perimeter defender. He's a playmaker. He's a veteran. And, he was out for game 4 because of left knee soreness. And he has the highest, plus minus of any player in the rotation. I think he has a plus 13.6. And 357 minutes. So with him being questionable for Game 5 and the possibility of him kind of being hampered, how much of that is important for the outcome of this series?
It's very important. Like you say, he's one of the best defenders. But also to add, Klay Thompson is questionable too. He might play, but he's still questionable from a minor knee strain he had in Game 4. But to go back to Iguodala, he's a great defender. He's not a big three-point shooting guy, but he can create his own dribble. He can pass really well, and he can rebound. That's a different type of guy. Coming off the bench, being a 6-man or even a 7-man coming out, he could play in a starting lineup if he wanted to. He's like Sean Livingston. So I think Sean Livingston can play in a starting lineup if given the opportunity. But he's a guy who could play great defense. Without him on the court, they play all right defense, but Iguodala has long, lankish arms. The man can cover a lot of ground, and he can play against anybody, especially LeBron James. He didn't stop LeBron James, but he got
close
James and kind of, rustled his feathers a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that defensive performance was one of the best you can have on LeBron.
I mean, LeBron still had his, 30s, 9, whatever. He had those points, but in the clutch places and clutch defense, he stepped up. That's the type of guy he is for that basketball team. He doesn't need to shoot threes. He's a guy. He's like a Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman's word for rebounds and defense. He'll get a bucket in every now and again, but this is what we need you for. A rotational player, situational player. This is what we need. Without him, they can still win, but he's a big, vital part of the basketball team, to be honest. Man, hopefully he can play. That'll add some fire and give some of these other guys some breather off the bench.
Yeah, I definitely think it'll be huge for him to play because you kind of need that. You really need that when you're having shooters everywhere with the Rockets. And even though he can't completely neutralize James Harden, he can rattle him a little. He can make life more difficult with more difficult contested shots, and even Chris Paul and Eric Gordon. So I definitely think it'll be vital for him to play in Game 5 and just for this series. So how do you see this series playing out?
It's going to 7.
Yeah.
It's back and forth. I think
I could see 7.
Yeah. But I think now I'm kind of shifting towards – now I'm going to stay with the Rockets. If Rockets have a great shooting night, they're going to win. But if they struggle at the three-point line and struggle in rebounding and struggle in – they don't have to you know what? I'm not going to get too deep into it. I'm just going to say it's going to 7. I still have the Rockets coming out of it.
Yeah. If it went to 7, it'd be a really dangerous game for Golden State. Even though I still like Golden State, just a Game 7 in Houston, I think what could be problematic. But I think Golden State wins in 6. Just because Houston, it seems like the times they played well is when their backs are against the wall in the series. It hasn't been when they have a cushion. Like Game 2 and Game 4, they had to win both those games, and that's kind of we saw the increased sense of urgency. But when there's not a sense of urgency against Golden State, it seems like they don't play as well. And so even though I could see it going 7, I think Golden State will win in 6. The Eastern Conference Finals is 3-2 Boston now, and Boston continued home success with a 10-0 record. And Tatum had an incredible game, 24 points. I think he was 7 of 15 shooting over 40 minutes, and it seems as though when he's at home, he even plays better. He can still score on the road, but when he's at home, there's even an increased level of play. And now they're one game away from the finals, an improbable possibility. But with the Cavs just not being able to bring the same amount of effort we saw at Cleveland in games 3 and 4, and the role players struggling, J.R. Smith just having a typical J.R. Smith game where we don't know what J.R. Smith we're going to get, and LeBron looking tired. Comparatively, we haven't seen him look that gassed in a while, and so it was definitely a different sight. But what were your thoughts on their win and the rest of the series?
I think one highlight. Well, it's a couple things that highlights. One, LeBron is completely gassed.
Yeah.
His facial expression, his body movement, his body language indicates I can't survive an NBA Finals with these guys. I have to score 50 points, 44 points a night for us to even be remotely close. And another one that headline, Rodney Hood. That he's not a basketball player. I think it was game 3 or game 2 where he was
just said he's not a basketball player.
He's not a basketball player. He's not hungry enough to be on a LeBron James team. When you ask to come out the game where you're the guy, you're the go-to guy who's scoring most of the points when you're down and you ask to come out, that's not a hungry basketball player. That's the type of team LeBron is playing with right now.
I was dead wrong on Rodney Hood. Coming out of that trade, I thought he was going to have the most impact. He's had the least amount of impact. He
has so much potential, but he doesn't have that thirst and hunger that any other basketball player. That's what I say. He's not a hungry basketball player because any other guy would have stayed in the game. I'm the only guy who can create my own shot, who can drive in the hole and create shots and make buckets for the team, and I'm asking to come out the game.
Yeah,
that's the highlight. That's the type of team LeBron is playing with. It's role players that are not contributing to the goal at hand. Kyle Korver is off. Kevin Love is becoming Kevin Love from the Timberwolves, but it's going to take some time. J.R. Smith, we don't know who J.R. Smith is. He doesn't know who himself is. I think he needs to look in the mirror before the game and like, okay, I'm going to switch the real J.R. If we're the real J.R. Smith, please stand up.
Okay, am I J.R. Smith? Okay, I am. All right, let's do this.
This is a team LeBron is playing with. You cannot fault LeBron for any of this in this whole playoff run. It's been LeBron gassing himself completely because usually he can coast a little bit and give it all NBA Finals. But man, that's the headline.
Yeah,
LeBron is gassed with a team that's not hungry.
Yeah, it definitely does seem as though this is one of those things where it's an accumulation of look. I had 7 games in the first round. I've had to play in excess of 40 minutes, just in the first round. Toronto was a breeze, but this series, it even when he had when I kind of knew this series was going to be different was game 2 when he had a 42-point triple-double and that still wasn't enough. It's usually a win.
Right.
Like that's usually good enough. And it's like, it still wasn't enough. And that's, I think when they finally faced a team that was better than them, and even though Cleveland still has a chance to win this, do you think game 5 was a game where LeBron's like, look, it's not going all right. So I'm going to try to conserve a little more energy and, have a really good game 6 and winner take all game 7. Do you think LeBron has that foresight of, look, game 7 is the game where I'm going to have to exert a lot of energy in Boston, or is it just the supporting cast isn't enough?
I think he already knows. After yesterday's game, I think he's already known, okay, these guys are not the same guys. Now he realizes I put my 120% in, and it still wasn't enough because I don't have a great supporting cast. If this supporting cast does not have a good game the next game, they're going home. Doesn't matter what LeBron James does. He could block 5 shots from the back. He can shoot pretty. He could go 5 for 5 for 3-point line and have 55 points. It's still not enough if your supporting cast does not do anything. He doesn't have that number 2 guy, that shot guy. It's too late to bloom Kevin Love into Kevin Love. It's too late.
Mm-hmm.
You need a guy. We thought Rodney Hood and J.R. Smith would be that guy. We're wrong.
It could be a trap game for Cleveland. Game 6 could possibly be a trap game because if you go in with the notion of, I mean, the entire series has been both team protecting home court, and if we saw in game 4, the thing that killed Boston was getting off to a slow start in the first quarter. They were down by 19. That's kind of what killed them. They outscored Cleveland in quarters 2 through 4, but it was the first quarter that kind of was the nail in the coffin for them to not be able to get that win. Do you think Boston can finally translate to the road and have a good win? Like do you think Could you see that happening if they're able to kind of get off to a better start and be in a manageable striking distance?
I don't think they're a good road team. And I think they're a slow start because they don't have that energy behind them when they're at home. And that's okay. Your home fans are giving you enough energy for you to be fired up, but you got to be fired up at away games too. But with the Cavaliers being at home, I'll give the edge to them because I don't know. It just depends. It doesn't matter if the Celtics get off to a great start because the Celtics can beat the Cavaliers at home if they continue to be consistent in
their
every
defense.
quarter.
I mean, they only shot 36% from the field in game 5, and they were still able to win by double digits, even though, I mean, they got off to a good start from the perimeter in the first half. And I think that's kind of what, got them that win and was able to kind of guarantee that win. But they didn't really shoot that well from the field, and Cleveland had many chances to get back in the game, but their defense, the Celtics defense was extremely stout.
This is the craziest thing about the series. The Celtics does not have to do much to win this series because if J.R. Smith and just a supporting cast doesn't have a great game, the Celtics can do anything and they can still win.
Yeah,
that's the crazy thing about this series. They have enough to win. Now, if they get to the finals, they're gonna have to play from quarter 1 to quarter 4. It doesn't matter if they play the Houston Rockets or the Golden State Warriors. But in this series, they don't have to shoot well or start off well to beat the Cavaliers. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, it definitely will be interesting to see how things play out there. How do you envision kind of the rest of the series going? Do you think Cleveland gets Game 6?
No, I think the Celtics end it out 4-2 and they go to the finals.
You know what? I definitely could see that. Could see that happening. It's just I'm not sure if Boston, they're not a good road team in the playoffs, but I'm not sure if it can translate to Cleveland. I'd still give Cleveland the edge in that game. I wouldn't be surprised if Boston won and finally turned things around because of their defense and getting off to a better start in the first. But I mean, overall, I do think Boston will win this series. It's the reoccurring theme of even if LeBron is amazing, which we know he's going to be, the supporting cast has not been sufficient, and that's kind of been the reoccurring theme.
Yeah.
The Timberwolves and Karl-Anthony Towns, it's recently been reported that they've kind of had internal issues, and there's been the social media thing with him in a Phoenix jersey that the Devin Booker was posting, and they know each other pretty well from Kentucky. And then the issue of when you have a coach / GM and you have a player who's kind of disgruntled and not really completely satisfied with what's going on. We saw in the Houston series didn't have that good of a series. There's always the issues of what's the future for a big man in that type of environment when he's not really having the type of series you would expect him to have. And then Tom Thibodeau, we know he can be very, demanding and very rigid, and those two heads clashing. What are your thoughts on the future of Karl-Anthony Towns in Minnesota?
I don't think Minnesota gets rid of him. Tom Thibodeau is the head coach and general manager, but I think he keeps him there. But I think it'll pan out better for them if they let him go. To be honest, he's not a piece that they'll miss dearly because he didn't show up. He's not a tough guy. He's not one of those big guys that can stand in the paint, grab a rebound, get dirty like Draymond, or got old school guys like Shaq or Hakeem Olajuwon. Those guys that can stand in the paint.
He's a modern big.
He's a modern big who wants to spread out and shoot the jump shot more than he wants to get in the paint. And I think they can do without that. They need a guy who can get dirty in the paint, get you some rebounds, and get some isolations in the paint. I think they could get a good first-round pick for him or go to the Magic, get a first-round pick, and get another big, Nikola, from the Magic. So they got options. I don't think they get rid of him, But if they was, wanted to, let's see what happens, they get a good first round pick, get another guard or somebody, situation player. You still have Jimmy Butler, Andrew Wiggins, still have Jamal Crawford. Get you another guy, bring in another big. You're fine. Let him go to the Suns. Let him go to the Magics. It's not a vital piece to me because he showed me that he doesn't have any grit.
But I mean, he can be. He still has the potential to be a once in a generation talent. Like to me, I do think that's still a possibility. Even though he had an underwhelming performance in the first round, Karl-Anthony Towns does have the ability to be an extremely versatile and productive big in today's league. But to me, the player whose future could be kind of a question mark is Andrew Wiggins, because he has the 5-year, $148 million max contract, fully guaranteed, and there's been the question marks of whether or not he's going to, because he said there was reports earlier this season, allegedly he denied it, but that he wasn't happy being like the third option. But when you have Jimmy Butler on a team like that, that's naturally what's going to happen. And he took the most shots. But do you think Wiggins' future is the one that can be more of a question than even Towns?
Yeah, I agree. I agree to that. Especially when you take the most shots, you still have the lowest percentage of anybody on the basketball team. But I think he's more vital than Karl-Anthony Towns, to be honest, even with his low shooting percentage. Because Andrew Wiggins is the guy who can play good on the backcourt and the front court. He can play good defense, and when he's able to get isolated and to make his own shots, he could be successful. Before Jimmy Butler was there, but I just think they're not the type of offense that need a big man who's standing at the 3-point line or not in the paint. Tom Thibodeau is a guy who likes big men, just like he had Andrew Drummond. I think it was Andrew Drummond. Oh, I'm thinking of the wrong basketball team.
Was it Taj Gibson?
It was Taj. Well, he's with the Bulls.
Right. I mean, and Noah.
That was with the Bulls. I'm sorry. The big guy was with the Bulls.
Joakim Noah?
Well, Joakim, he'll get in the paint.
Yeah.
He's gritty. I liked him at Florida. Go Gators. He's grit. Like, he likes guys like that. If they had a Joakim Noah, I think there'd be a better basketball team.
But didn't this seem like a team that was kind of, weirdly constructed in a way, because it seemed like he was bringing back a ton of former Bulls players, Butler, Taj Gibson, just a ton of, even Derrick Rose, a ton of guys that he formerly coached. Do you think Thibodeau is the right coach for this team?
I think he brought them guys in because he knows their potential and he knows they can win basketball games. I think Taj Gibson was a good choice because he's a guy who can step in the paint, get you some rebounds, and he's a pretty good defender. Derrick Rose was, 1 year. Okay, let's give him a bone, but I think Jimmy.
And he actually played well in the first round.
Yeah, he did. He played really well. He played to some spurts of him back in MVP Derrick Rose. But I think I don't think he should be the general manager, to be honest, but I think he's a good coach for them. He's a gritty coach. He wants every ounce of you. And I don't think that's the type of player Karl-Anthony Towns is, because Coach K didn't, ask that of him, So that's why I say he's not the player that should be in that system. He's not that systematic player. He's a guy who can be with Golden State or a team that swings the ball around a lot, the big men, and let them shoot. That's not the type of player they need. They need Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins just wakes up, and they'll be fine.
Yeah, my question with that is, I just wonder if Andrew Wiggins is not going to be as underwhelming as he's been in the past. Because if he's taking the most shots on the team and he's extremely inefficient, then that's not a good sign for the future. And that's why I think they were kind of questioning whether to give him that 5-year deal because of signs like that. But I do think Towns still has the potential to be a once in a generation player, but he did have an underwhelming first round. He was outplayed by Clint Capella, and it's no knock on Clint Capella, but if he's outplaying him, Capella shouldn't be outplaying Towns. Towns, that's they didn't bring him there to envision losses, individual matchup losses like that. So it definitely will be interesting to see kind of how they figure out. But I think Towns will stay, and I don't really see him going anywhere anytime soon. A player who could be going somewhere, but possibly not, is Demarcus Cousins. And this offseason, he unfollowed the Pelicans.
Yeah.
He liked a comment about that the Pelicans should give him a max on, I think, Twitter. And there's with him suffering the ruptured Achilles and the Pelicans still being able to get to the second round and have successful Davis at center in Mirotić. And now the questions of whether or not he will be able to still fit with that team. You're still going to have the top. You're still going to have the top end talent with him back there. With him and Davis, they are extremely productive bigs. But there's almost a question if what they saw in the series against Portland and the success they had, whether or not that was a sign of things to come and that they could have more success without him. Even though with DeMarcus Cousins, he's still one of the best centers in the league and is going to provide a lot. What do you think about his future with the Pelicans this upcoming offseason?
I think that injury was the worst thing that could happen to him. Obviously, both as a physical and as a business side of basketball. Now you want a long-term deal, but the Pelicans are not looking for a long-term deal. They're looking for 2 to 3, not even a max deal. And outside of the Pelicans, I think Dallas Mavericks and the Lakers, there's not a big market for him to go into.
That's the only market, pretty much.
Yeah, if he's going to have to take a pay cut if he wants to stay with the Pelicans. But that injury kind of made him put him in a spot where I'm going to have to settle. I'm going to have to be content and just work for what I have. So out of those options, the best option for you is to stay with the Pelicans, which I think he wants to do. But he said that he didn't want any distractions. That's why he unfollowed the Pelicans or whatnot. But the best option for him, he's going to have to take a pay cut and be content. He's going to have to work his way from that injury. We don't know. They don't know what. It could be like an Isaiah Thomas situation where we think he's good, and then he gets back in there and he injures it, or we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. Right. But his best bet is to stay with the Pelicans. That's the best option. If he goes to the Lakers, I don't think he fit with the Lakers. That's not the type of Luke Walton is trying to do. I don't think he'll go to the Lakers. And Dallas Mavericks, I think his best bet is to stay with the Pelicans, to be honest.
Yeah, and the history of a player suffering a torn Achilles, returning from that really hasn't been that good. I know Wesley Matthews was kind of able to come back from that. I think Elton Brand had that injury. I'm not sure, but
he's a baller.
Yeah, but with that type of injury and the concerns of it, do you think that's another big factor that the Pelicans are wondering, like, whether we're going to get the same Boogie back?
Oh, most definitely. That's why I said he's going to have to be content in the deal. And I think even before he was injured, I think they were still looking for a 2 to 3 year deal because they got him off the trade from the Kings. I don't think because they have to pay Anthony Davis first off, and then Drew Holiday had a couple good series, so they might have to extend his play. It's different things like that, so they don't have the cap room to pay him this big deal. So that play, I bet you bottom down, the first thing you're going to say, well, how's your Achilles? That's the first thing you're going to say, well, we know how good you are, but now you have this injury. We don't know if you're worth that much money, and then they're going to downgrade him because of the injury. And he's either going to have to take that insult, that 2 to 3 years, whatever the amount is, take the insult, be content, and work his way to a championship with Anthony Davis and Drew Holiday and Rajon Rondo, or go to another team, young team of Lakers, or go to an old team of Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah.
But it's definitely going to play a part. That's the first thing that's going to be on the board. Your injury, how is it?
Yeah. I mean, that definitely is going to be the biggest question because it is such a difference for players returning back from that injury, and the market for a big is kind of thin right now. And so that because it's pretty much only 3 teams: Pelicans, Lakers, Mavericks, and that's pretty much about it for his option. So it definitely should be interesting to see how that plays out. Last week, the Supreme Court made a decision on Monday to put down the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, the original 1992 federal ban on legal sports betting. And, it's a major opportunity for multi-billion-dollar markets. But still, there's going to be winners and losers. And, the NCAA, they're not a fan of this, probably, in terms of just they already have the issues with players and compensation as it is. Now there's going to be increased forms of that. And as we've already seen, it's something that probably, like, we know it's happening, but now that it's finally being legalized, how do you think it's going to have an impact on just different sports across?
When the government enters into anything, it gets messy. Look at the NCAA this past year or two. So whenever the government enters into something, and this is going to be detrimental to the game, any game, NHL, baseball, football, basketball. We already know it's going down, but we don't want to see it in high print that it's going down. Let it be a side thing, because now they're trying to make sure the game is not a cheating game. What if somebody throws it off because they bet on themselves to win or lose, and then they try to make money? It takes away from the game. I know I'm just a spectator and I don't know too much about it, but I don't think it's right. And a lot of people are saying the same thing, like the New Jersey lawmaker urges states to reject sports betting and carrying fee. Like, everybody's against it. Don't do it. Government, get out of sports. You're not needed in sports. Like the government intervened into the Tom Brady scandal. Why are you intervening? Why?
Right.
I'm so bored. And then I think it's another way to compensate compensate the senators, the politicians.
Yeah.
It's all money, baby. It's all money, baby. It's a money thing. They want the money. But
yeah.
I think it's detrimental to sports, man. Leave it out of sports. Get rid of it.
And the betting public, gambling companies, legal bookmakers, they're all going to benefit from this. Those are the type of people that will benefit from this. But the NCAA, they vehemently oppose things like this, and now they're at the risk of having to ask for compensation from legal markets, for increased compliance costs. Do you think the NCAA, they're kind of with their hands tied now, because they're like, we see this as an issue, but we also, may have to profit for the increased compliance costs as well?
Yeah, they're profiting more off the students even more now because this law has passed. Man, it irks my nerves because the students.
You really do think the NCAA is corrupt, though?
I definitely think it's corrupt.
Yeah.
From the bylaws, the policies that's been set before a long time ago, I understand that NCAA has started everything, they implemented everything, but without these players, without these student athletes, the NCAA would be nothing. Literally nothing. Literally. Right. You're not paying these students. I understand that some of these students go to $80,000 tuition schools and they get it paid for free, but still you're making more money off them than they can profit. They don't have a say, they don't have a voice. You get a free education, you get apparel. These students be hungry after. We talked about this, but it's another way for them to benefit off these student athletes, and they don't get anything in return that matches the same market value that they're getting from the revenue they get every single year. It's crazy.
Definitely, and it's definitely an increased issue as we kind of see that the NCAA, they do profit from these athletes, but the athletes, they don't profit from what they're able to do and what they can, the success, the revenue that they bring in for this corporation and it's definitely going to get really, really tricky, and there can be some pitfalls with that. But who do you think they're the biggest loser out of this because of the issues they have with it?
Well, the NCAA?
Yeah.
Or the student athletes?
No, I mean like just the NCAA.
I think they profit the most from it. Because I think college sports are more watched than any other, even baseball, even NFL. People watch college football more than they watch the NFL games or even NBA basketball games. The ratings doesn't go up into the NBA finals, the playoff runs. So everybody watches college sports, from college basketball, college football, even tennis, even volleyball.
Yeah.
You know? So I think NCAA has a bigger market value than any other national level, collegiate level, it doesn't matter. The NCAA is a monopoly because they have multiple sports in between and within them. So they have a lot of wiggle room. So I think they benefit the most about it. Because a lot of people bet on college, especially college football. Oh, man. And the Final Four, the March Madness, forget about it.
Yeah.
So I think they profit more than anything.
Yeah, it really is profitable for them. Transitioning to the NFL, Tom Brady this week currently has not been at OTAs, and Bill Belichick, he's gonna say what he feels as though is what's best for the players that are currently there, and he had no interest talking about it, and it's kind of a contrast because in June of 2013. Brady had a comment about OTAs and kind of the importance of it. And he said, this lays the foundation for the start of training camp. And if you have a good training camp, it usually means a good start to the season. So now, he's not at OTAs. Robert Kraft was talking about how he'll be back for mini camp. And, he has increased responsibilities with his family and wanting to spend more time with them. And that there's really no issue with him and Belichick. It's one of those situations where Brady will be back, but in terms of where things are currently, what are your thoughts on just kind of the perceived dysfunction with him and Belichick? Because it doesn't seem like they have been painted to be as on the same page as they usually are.
I think they're fine. I think the only thing he's missing out on right now is the chemistry that he can get, because he's a great quarterback. He can get in the mandatory mini camps. Like he said, some guys don't come to the volunteer. Like you volunteer to go. It's not mandatory. Now, I think he's a business guy. He's a mogul. He's a great quarterback, so he understands what he can miss out on and what he can't miss. I don't think there's no need to panic. He's been in the system long enough. The offensive coordinator is still there. Patricia's gone. What's the offensive coordinator? Gosh, I didn't put it in my notes. Help me out, Wellington.
Josh McDaniels.
Yes, Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
He's still there.
I literally saw his. I could see his face. I just couldn't put the name together to it.
You're my guy, man. You know the names. I don't know how to say. He's like, oh yeah, Josh McDaniels. Yeah, that's him. That's the guy. Yeah. He knows Josh McDaniels' system. He's been with them long enough. He knows Bill Belichick and how Bill Belichick wants it. So I don't have to come to OTAs. Let the young guys come in here and get, acclimated, get the chemistry, get the older guys. The only thing I think he's missing on right now at OTAs is the chemistry, but he can make that up in mandatory mini camp and training camp. So
you do think that the OTAs are more important for the younger players compared to the older players, since they're already seasoned and pretty much know what has to be done? Do you think it's more kind of important for them?
Yeah, I think so, because most of the time these guys, the older guys, are going to take most of the reps anyways. So the reps that they do have, you have to make the best of them, because you're coming in fifth, sixth string, even seventh string at most cases, and you have to fit in where get in where you fit in. So having Tom Brady out, younger guys can come in, or who tight ends Gronk is not there as well.
Right.
He'll be back in mini camp, opportunity more. I think for the young guys, you have rookie camp, rookie mini camp, then you have OTAs right after. So if you make the rookie mini camp, now you transition into playing with everybody else on the team, get you chemistry. I think it's most important for the younger guys to do so. I think mini camp is for everybody to gel as one, everybody come together. But I think for the younger guys, it's more important, obviously, because you've never been in the system. You don't know how to win with an NFL team yet, so you need more.
Yeah, with this team in particular, they're tight-lipped. They're extremely buttoned up and not going to really say much and give off much. But I do think, look, there's really nothing to worry about. Brady's going to be back. Gronk is going to be back, and this is just a situation where older players really don't need it as much, and they'll be just fine. The last topic for today is Aaron Rodgers, and this past season he broke his collarbone for the second time in 4 years, and he has a style of play where, look, he's gonna take more hits at times because of how he'll extend plays and not stay in the pocket as much, and with the injuries that he's had and how at times he can be more vulnerable for hits. Do you think his style of play has anything to do with it, or it's just, look, he's a mobile quarterback, things like this will happen?
I think so. And when Barr hit him, it was kind of like a freakish play. He hit him in the right spot and landed on him. And sometimes, look at Dupree. He came in and made a form tackle, end up injuring his back. So it comes with the territory of football. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I think his style of play, he's been consistently healthy the past 4 or 5 years. He had 1 year his hamstring was bothering him for a long time. He had to sit out and came back during the playoffs, and we lost to the Seahawks that year, and the Seahawks ended up winning the Super Bowl. But I think for the most part, he's a healthy quarterback, and his style of play hasn't stifled him or anything or made injuries. But I think it's his style of play doesn't make a factor. I think sometimes it's just the way you land on it, or the freakish nature of football. You look at these other guys. Cam Newton is a mobile quarterback.
He is mortal too.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
No. Yeah. You were saying he's a mortal quarterback. I'm like, yeah. They're all.
Sometimes my lips, man, they don't, form words correctly. Sometimes when I'm going off into rants.
Right.
But I don't think his style of play, creates situations for him to be, become injured or get injured in a way. I think sometimes just the freaking nature of the game, because his style of play actually helps his game and helps the offense. Extending plays, that's his MO. Extend plays, perfect accuracy, deep ball threat, got enough arm to get it down there. That's his game. If you take the mobility of Aaron Rodgers away, he's immortal. See how I fit it.
Gotcha. That's nice.
Yeah. Thanks,
bro. But since 2008, his first year, no quarterback has thrown more touchdowns from outside the pocket than him. Matt Ryan, Big Ben, Matt Stafford followed him after that. So it really does seem like his presence outside the pocket is where he can have the more success. With Rodgers, in terms of his career overall, do you feel as though it's one of those things where, look, like he's been healthy for the start of the season, and like I think this past season, he had a late touchdown against Dallas. They were 5-1, and it looked like they were gonna have a deep run in the playoffs. But with the injuries, it's kind of hampered those runs. Do you think he's still on the cusp of another deep run in the postseason, or do you still have some concerns about what's the supporting cast surrounding him?
Well, no, I think I think I said we because I'm a Green Bay Packers fan. I think they added the necessary pieces. They added Jimmy Graham. They just added Mercedes Lewis at the tight end position, giving him multiple weapons. They still have Williams, who had a great season last year coming off the rookie season. You got Jones as well at running back. We're not a big running team, but we also need the running team. We haven't had a good running game since Eddie Lacy departed. But I think Devontae Adams, they got rid of Jordy. It hurt my heart, but I was looking at it. I started looking at a standpoint of business. Jordy is getting to that age, and he's declining in his yardage and catch. He's had a lot of
Right.
drop catches last year. Was not normal Jordy. They kept running Cobb. Devontae Adams is coming to his zone. He's a deep ball threat. He's a slant guy. He can do anything you want. I think he has another. If we get our offensive line to stay healthy, like Balaga gets injured every single year. I'm tired of it, Brian. I'm tired, Brian.
Yeah.
But no, if we keep our offensive line anchored by Brian Balaga and Bakhtiari, I think we'll be fine. They'll be fine as a unit. They have enough weapons. The defense I think it's a defense side that we need to fix and highlight. I think we did this in the draft, but I think he has enough weapons around him. He can make anybody look good. You have to think about Jordy was a nobody before Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and Rodgers can make him look world class.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, it definitely is a factor there. One topic we didn't talk about, I completely forgot to bring this up, but was Doc Rivers had a contract extension with the Clippers, and he had the season of CP3 not being there, Blake Griffin getting traded later, and they're just a couple games outside of the playoff race. And I think it really was an impressive season for him to keep them relevant. What were your thoughts quickly on that extension signing?
It's one guy you like to root for as a coach and just a player, just all around guy is Doc Rivers. I think he's an excellent basketball coach, excellent father, man, just an all around role model. And so, like you said, to keep them in the light, it was dim, but it was light nonetheless. Yeah. I think he deserves that because just having the pieces that he had, any other team, any other coach would have been like, okay, I'm throwing my hands up. I don't know what to do with these guys, but he deserves it. Hopefully they do good in the draft and get some other guys to have some wiggle room, but I think he definitely deserves that extension. He's a great coach.
Yeah, it really was impressive just how he kept them afloat in a tough Western Conference and only a couple games out. But that was definitely an interesting extension and news with that. Well, that wraps it up for us today. I'm your host, William Burns, along with my counterpart, Savon Morris. This has been Full Scope. See you later.